Okay, what we're going to look at next is having a gaping armhole. Now this can happen whatever bust size you are, but it does tend to happen more when you've got the larger bust and you've maybe altered your shoulders, your side seam. It's just nature of pattern cutting. You need to sculpt around your bust. So a gaping armhole, it can be a really small amount or it can be quite, you know, a significant amount, but it will make a massive difference and it is a really lovely, lovely technique to do. So on this sample here, I've just measured what needed to be taken out. So when that was fitted, this was just quite full and gaping. So this is where we've just done a small little pin in the armhole and just graduated it towards the bust. But you don't need to worry about pinning the whole way. Again, this is the really important bit, that you've taken that fullness out right at the top. Now what we're going to do is we've got the front block. I'm just going to remove the book now, but you can see that it is disgusting full there on there. Now we have the block in front, and what we first do, we say we've traced off the whole of the front bodice pattern without your seam allowance. The next thing then is you draw a line down the centre of this shoulder dart. So I'm going to draw it in red so you can see. You find the centre of the dart, so your pattern master is quite useful for this part as well, just to find where that centre is. And you draw down to the point, but you also extend it by 2 centimetres, because 2 centimetres past that bust point is on your bust line. Right, so what we've done first, we have your front bodice block. We have drawn down a red line down the centre of the dart and we've extended it 2 centimetres. The next thing for you to do then is check where you want to actually take that fullness out. So I'm just going to do a little mark according to where this was on here. And we're just going to draw from that point of the armhole. We are going to take that to that bust point there. And we just draw that in as a line. The next thing you're going to do, you actually open up. So we mark on here, on each side of where we pinned the gaping armhole. And then you open this up, and that measurement is what you want to transfer over to here. So that is how much that we want to take out of the armhole. Now, if you were just altering a garment, you would have to just put a dart in as an extra dart. But when you're working straight onto pattern paper, the joy is you can take that fullness out and you actually move it into your shoulder dart. So this is the magic bit. So you create this dart here by drawing it into your pattern like that. So that now, this is what we want to move out of your armhole. So what we do is we get our scissors and we are going to actually cut down the shoulder dart all the way down the centre, right down to that bust point. Turn that back and move this out the way. So once you have drawn in your dart, you've also cut down this line. So you'll see now that that is cut down to this point. This is where the magic happens. So you now fold up on the dart line that you've just drawn in, and then you fold that line onto the second line. So what you're technically doing is closing a dart, and what you'll see has happened is when you've closed this dart, you've actually opened and created a new dart up here, but it's within the shoulder dart. So I'll just show you, you've gone from, that is your current shoulder dart, and then by closing this, you move that fullness into the shoulder dart. So what you would do is trace off this pattern as a brand new piece. You still have these notches marked for your shoulders. You still have your dart ending 2 centimetres above your bust point. You retrace the whole pattern off, and then that fullness has magically disappeared into your shoulder dart. And you can do that anyway, you can manoeuvre darts around, which is quite clever, but just for this alteration, manoeuvring the fullness out of an area into a new dart is how you now lose that gaping armhole. So I'll trace this off and show you what a finished pattern piece looks like. If when you've redrafted your armhole, and you'll find that you might find that the actual toile is sitting a bit short, maybe of like your bra showing. So if you need to redraw your actual armhole to allow you a bit more room, then you can fill in the gap. As long as it still has a natural line that scoops around and joins the existing line naturally, then you can fill in any of that there, which might just give you a little bit more of an armhole. So then that becomes your new armhole there. So then that has now gone. Your gape has gone, but you've also given yourself a little bit more fabric into your armhole. So if when you have closed the little kind of gaping part, and you close that fullness and put it into the full dart up here on the shoulder, you'll find it will be a really big shoulder dart. But don't be afraid, if you have got a large shoulder dart, then you can actually cut that away and overlock it or neaten it so it doesn't interfere with anything with your neckline. But the reason why I get you to transfer it into the shoulder dart is so that your waist dart will still match the skirt dart. So if you do at any point want to do a straight dress and you want the darts to still line up and you want to lose that actual waistline, then at least with your darts being able to be the same size and matching up, you can still do that. Whereas it just means having a slightly larger shoulder dart, which you just cut the excess off for about 1 centimetre. So when you've got this part, it might look pretty big, but there is a reason for that. Now, when you're adding your seam allowance on, you'll find that you can add your seam allowance here and here, but this part is a bit of the unknown. You don't really know where the seam allowance is. So the best thing to do is to close your dart and then draw your seam allowance. You actually fold your dart closed. Your dart folds to all towards the centre back, so your dart will actually fold to your armhole. So once you've got that line, you can just position that over there. And this is what you might find, your dart might end up sticking out a little bit there. So what you would do is when that's in fabric later on, you can chop that off. But just to show you how to get your seam allowance added in, close your dart so it's shut, and then with a nice straight line, cut across the top, and then when you take that pin out, that then has accounted for your seam allowance within there. So if you've ever got any doubt with adding the seam allowance with a dart, close your dart, cut off the top, and then open it back out. Now, like I was saying, if you have with your shoulder dart, if you end up having quite a large dart in there, you can then trim off this excess near to the point and just neaten the edge. That is how you transfer your gaping armhole.